Hi, everyone. I am thrilled to be here. We have an interesting selection of folks and 45 minutes or less to surface what I think are some of the big existential questions that swirl around the conversations we've been having today. So let me tell you who we have here, and then I'll just tell you their names, and I'm asking them to introduce themselves. And then I'll do a quick preview of the main themes we're going to cover in the next 45 minutes, and offer a couple of opening thoughts. Okay? Great. Good. Okay, we have Cezary Jaroni from Google, and he's going to introduce himself in a moment. We have Maria Belka from Mentors for Startups, and I can't wait to hear about her 11 years of experience doing this. And you guys already know Kathleen Kennedy if you've been around today, so she is from MIT and will tell you. And the question I'm going to ask them, each of them in a moment, is tell us a little bit about what you do and maybe what you've done, like a sentence or two, and then why are you here for this conversation? Like, you could interpret it as, why does it matter to me? Or you could interpret it as why I think I was invited. I don't mind either. So that's where we're going to go next. So let me just say a couple of words to introduce the themes. And we realize this is a room that isn't fully set up for like tons of back and forth with the audience. So we try to imagine some of the questions you may ask. Hi, Mohammed. And put them within our discussion here today. And then we'll end on time, so you'll have a chance to grab folks and talk to them today and tomorrow, hopefully, too. So the title of this, as you guys know, is Redefining Learning and Intelligence in the Age of AI. Is this the age of AI? That was my question number one. Or have we not seen nothing yet? Is it ahead of us? To be discussed. That's not the core question. The core question is our definition of intelligence shifting? So we're actually going to get a little bit definitional, and then what does it mean? How are we defining learning? And we've actually kind of all assumed it's human learning, so we'll probably go that way. But I think these questions are almost like fundamental. And we've decided on our panel that we're not going to prognosticate or predict. Instead, what we'd like to do is offer some thoughtful thoughts based on each person's experience and what they've been pondering and working on. And we won't necessarily have a resolution to the question, but stay, because in the last 5 minutes, we have key takeaways from each person. So that's your enticement to stay and get some good ideas to take with you afterwards. Okay. So with that in mind, let me ask you, Cezary, to introduce yourself. Tell us what you do now, what you did, and why you're here for this.
Of course. First of all, super excited to be here. And now I see some familiar faces. So why am I here? So at my daily job, I work at Google, and I'm responsible for running educational arm of Google, which is called Creative Google. And up to date, we've trained like almost 500,000 people in digital skills, but most recently, I created and ran the largest AI educational initiative for SMBs in Poland, where we admitted 20,000 people and managed to train 15,000 people on AI. And I'm here probably to share my experiences in particular from this process, how we approach it, and what are the learnings from this journey on how people should approach learning in the age of AI and learning about AI.
Cool. Excellent. It's on. I think
it's on?
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be longer, so I was thinking about something else. Hello, I'm Maria Belka. Pleased to be here with you. My work is focused on preparing organizations and individuals for the challenges, but also the opportunities of the AI-driven world. In our organization, we focus on 2 babies. I'll start with the younger one. This is the Skills for Future, because this is a platform that is focused on equipping young people with skills that are really necessary for navigating the continuous change and all the challenges that they will face on the job market. And then with Mentors for Starters, we try to we were working on this gap. We try to bridge this gap between emerging leaders and established leaders, and we enable the knowledge transfer. So, as you can hear, we focus on teaching people different skills at different stages of their life. When I was thinking, why am I here? Usually I play this feminist card, saying, oh, I'm the only woman here, but this is absolutely not the case, which is very pleasing to see. But I think having thousands of people registered, hundreds of people in our community, Mentors for Starter is a really a stakeholder now in the topic of modern education. That was too long?
Yeah, no, it's good.
All right, I'll pick up the ball. Let's see. So hi, I'm Kathleen Kennedy. I've been at MIT for a couple decades, and I have run our startup organization called the MIT Enterprise Forum that we started here in Poland 10 years ago that I talked about this morning. And I also ran our media company, Technology Review, and a number of other things that I've done at the Institute. I call myself a pracademic. I've worked at an academic institution, but in fact, I'm more of a practical leader. And I've really been an entrepreneur within the Institute, starting multiple organizations within the Institute, really looking at how do we sort of tackle some big challenges. The area that I'm super focused on right now is in this AI-driven world, how do we need to design or redesign our organizations, the organizations that we work in and that run our world, and then how do we train people for those organizations? So that's a really big question. That's why I'm here, and that's what I'm excited to talk about.
Excellent, excellent. So we've got 3 themes we're going to dip into in the coming minutes. The first one is to actually explore the notion of intelligence. What is intelligence? Do we have, I don't know, we can have a little bit of a definitional discussion, but we won't get too much in the weeds. Then we're going to talk a little bit about how does teaching, training, learning, human development shift given the age of AI. And offer some thoughts on that. And then the third kind of domain we'll have a few minutes to explore is looking at the role of the human. So human agency and the interaction of the person and the computer, and then those like promised takeaway points, okay? So what I'm gonna do is put a question to Kathleen, and then we can all weigh in as well. But Kathleen, you have your definition of intelligence that you've come by honestly because you lead an effort at MIT that has the word intelligence in the title. So that's good. She knows what she's talking about. It's funny because we have different definitions. When I started thinking about intelligence, I went straight to, like Howard Gardner and I was looking at definitions of human intelligence, which are very much focused on cognition and skills and capabilities. But you're going a different way, so invitation.
Okay, so I do run the MIT Center for Collective Intelligence, and I think a lot about intelligence. A definition that we use is intelligence equals the ability to achieve goals. So yes, you can add sort of a bunch of things around cognition, and we actually think about sort of the cognitive process in what we do think about, right? And what is the cognitive process on making a decision?
Do you need, are you missing the novel element? Because the ability to achieve goals, isn't that, like, couldn't all standard operating procedures fall under that heading?
And why does it need to be novel?
Because that's where you have to think differently or do differently. But, I mean, it's a real question. Like, what do you
Well,
think?
so sure, but to define a goal, and honestly, often it can be the most simple way to achieve that goal is the best way to achieve it. And I think sometimes humans make things too complicated.
Cezary, what do you think?
Yet I both agree and disagree. So this is not my domain of expertise, but to me, intelligence is all about solving problems. So even when you think about IQ tests, right? It's a set of equations, recognizing patterns, and you have to solve some like analytical or cognitive problem. And we kind of discussed this, that once you have this ability to solve a given problem, equation, then you're achieving some kind of a goal, right? So maybe achieving this goal is another level, another step once you solve a given problem, because why you should achieve any goal? Like, what do you have to do in order to achieve any goal? You have to solve a set of problems. And maybe this is where we agree, and yeah.
Maria?
I appreciate living as a third one to this, it gets harder with everyone adding
yes,
their
I know.
opinions. So
Go for
it's, I was thinking, like I was listening to Kathleen and I was like, oh yeah, actually, she almost convinced me, I'm there. But then I was thinking, I agree with this kind of, applying your knowledge and your resources in the best, most effective, efficient way that, to get the desired effect. And I think it's like, but I thought maybe, like, if you were to actually think about this intelligence, what are like 3 ingredients that you would put there? What would it actually be? Because I was thinking, okay, maybe there's like, because it's more, I think there's, this goes like a rabbit hole, because you start digging and then you find like, intelligence, maybe it's more, okay, it's this efficiency and this knowledge. And what else would you add as a...
I'll tell you what I saw. So of course I asked ChatGPT and Copilot this question, of course. So pooling knowledge is one. So I sort of asked about intelligence connected with multiple people, right? So in an organization, in society, whatever. So pooling knowledge is a really important idea, putting it together, and you could also pool capabilities.
And then being able to communicate
Yes,
it. So,
yes.
which I had a moment right there where I was
Yeah.
not able to communicate
Yeah.
it, but I think
Yeah.
that may be the missing
Make
bit.
it accessible.
So let me say, maybe, and we think about artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence has been around since the 50s. We've been talking about AI for a really long time. But why all of a sudden, right at this moment, is it feel like it's the AI moment? Generative AI sort of captured the imagination of everyone now. But in fact, generative AI has been around before ChatGPT, right? Like we were using at the Center for Collective Intelligence, we were doing things on GPT-3. And I would talk to people about GPT-3 and they would just look at me, just like I just did right this second ago. Like, I was like, I don't know, what is that? And so, I'd talk to people about what generative AI is, but until we had the interface. So maybe there's an aspect of this intelligence of is unlocking the ability to be able to communicate about it or to access sort of information, one of the keys about intelligence.
It's about applying, exactly, like I think unlocking and applying what needs to be done, like in the right context and in the right moment, right?
Yeah, so back to your point about solving problems, if that's the goal, and again, my AI sources told me solving problems, making decisions, and innovating are the application domains, sure. But now, how do we educate in this world? And the title of our session has learning, but we are, all of us teach in some way or are concerned with that in some way. So we're going to explore both sides. Well, what are the implications? How do you think learning and teaching might be shifting? Cezary, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a big question. So maybe I will try to base the answer on what we did with at Google. And maybe, because also the other question is, okay, what should we do, right? We're in this AI era, we have to learn, we have to stay relevant. So the question is, like, what do we do to stay relevant? And so I'll pull some insights from what we did. And we did this 5-week training for people that want to stay relevant in the age of AI, right? So what we did is we tried to understand what people want to learn, what they need to be taught about. And we asked, okay, so what are your barriers? What do you need, basically? And most people said, like, we can boil it down to 3 things. A, how do we find the best use cases for AI? Then how do we think with AI in the age of AI? And 3 is how do we make it stick? Hence, staying with this new mindset, new way of thinking in AI. So what we did, we took those insights, we've built like a training program for 20,000 people, and 15,000 people completed it. And they were super excited. Why? Because we actually taught them those 3 things. So A, what are your best use cases for AI? So think about, you need to write a blog post, right? So how to do it actually in an effective way. Because most of the people who have been running interviews said, oh, AI output is often generic. So the question is, how do you make relevant output? How to work with this AI? And then second thing is, how do you judge it? So how do you think with AI? And actually thinking analytically was one of the highest rated content in our program. And it's actually in line with World Economic Forum is saying about skills that not necessarily only learning about AI is so important, but learning how to think analytically to be able to judge about the output. And the third thing is, how do we make it stick? So how do we build habits within, like, on an individual level and on the organizational level? So how do we make sure that we're actually leveraging this AI opportunity? So maybe a question to the audience, how many of you are using AI every day? So congrats to you, because you're on the tip of the spear of people who are using AI, because when we did our research, it showed that on average 70–80% actually tried AI, but only 2% is using it. Only 2% is using this on a daily basis, every day. So the third questions that we wrestle with was, okay, how do we make sure that people build this habit? How do we make sure that they will actually use it? And how do we make sure that they are not the only ones in the organizations that they're using it? And one insight here, and that's the last thing I will say in this, that the biggest productivity gains were achieved when people were using AI for tasks that they were already using. So imagine you're writing a blog post, and you have like Microsoft Word or Google Docs open. So if you have AI embedded in that, it will actually double your productivity, and you have way higher chances to actually improve your productivity compared to if you have to switch context to just ChatGPT or Gemini, another window. And this was insane to me, that this context switching plays such a huge difference. And it's all about habits, right?
Interesting. Or cognitive load as well, yeah.
Can I say something that I think is, so this is where I think the idea of how do we design our organizations is so important. Because what you're talking about is how we replace how we do a task with just doing it in a different way. And we need to actually leapfrog from that. Do we need to do any of those tasks anymore? And how do we rethink how to accomplish the goal? Right? And that I think is where it becomes interesting. It's not just replacement of task.
So in your definition, how do we make organizational intelligence, right?
Yeah. And that I think we haven't even really started yet, right? Right now, we're at the infancy of this, and actually, jobs are all the same way that they have. We did replacement. Like, there used to be paper memos that those got made into email, right? And on and on and on. Like, so we used to have in-person meetings, now there's Zoom meetings. And so we just sort of, like, it's just humans talking to each other to make things, right? And so, but how do we actually think about how to accomplish a goal in a radically different way?
You know, Maria, this makes me wonder, are you, the entrepreneurs you're working with and the companies, are they interested in this question? Like, do they want to learn about AI so that they can redesign their organizations?
I mean, the people we work with, individuals, companies, they're super busy and, overstimulated and tired. So everything that if they really start to see the value, like anything that saves their resources, obviously, you don't have to do a lot of advertising if those people, see actual, like it responds to their need, and then they really see the effect. That is something I think that is about the sticking, what sticks. Because if you, show someone something that it's really not relevant to their field, obviously they're not going to do it. So for me, it's like we don't necessarily focus on the AI. That we don't we don't teach the tools and how to use it and all that. Mentors for Starters and the Skills for Future is more about making your life easier with all that is at hand, that is available, and what actually you can really do when it comes to your tasks. But what I think is that all of what we do has in common is this. People sometimes talk about this hyper-personalization of learning, right? You were saying that people really do things that they really need. We work really on skill set that is really, really relevant to them at the moment. It's the same with organizations, right? Like they will adapt to what really makes their life more pleasant.
Yeah, so you're thinking about sticking. You're thinking about use and busyness of the targets, and you're thinking about throwing away the whole system, like doing it wildly differently. So it'll be interesting to see how the world progresses. Like, first people want to save time, then they want to know enough that they can be smart and participate. But then when do they come to this question? That's fascinating to me. Do you think it's a journey, or do you have this leapfrog idea, so you want to bypass the efficiency or the swapping and go to a whole new way to think about orgs?
I think that's one of the roles of academia, is that we're studying models and looking for new models. I think this is my pra-academic self here, that the practical aspect of companies, they're constructed and optimized in a different way. They're optimized for profit and efficiency. And so they're sometimes going to leapfrog, and I think that's one of the issues with generative AI and why you're seeing sort of a sea change happen, is because you can bring in generative AI tools to be a lot more efficient than these people in the organization, and then what do you do?
Yeah.
And that's where it becomes an interesting question.
Perfect segue to our third question. So we are now looking for the human in the loop to make sure we at least start that conversation about what is the role of human agency in our age of AI. And I know everyone here has thought about it, and nobody's thinking is done. But I would love, Maria, for you to kick us off, and we'll hear from the whole panel.
I think I'm not going to predict what the future will be like, but for the moment, maybe I'll be accused of being naive, but I still believe in that is human-centric process. What is this cooperation with AI? Like, I remember, you all probably remember many decades ago when people were saying, "Oh, with the internet, everybody will be smart." Like the lack of information, that will be the remedy for lack of, and then everybody remains stupid, right? And it's the same now. Like, it's not like the AI will do everything for us, and we'll want to need, and to take responsibility and actually, be the captains of our ships. So I always talk about this high agency thing. Like, I believe, like, you can have as many tools as there are. Many of them are for free. It's no longer, like, for the happy few. It's for everyone. But if you really don't have this agency, which translates into ownership, taking responsibility, about navigating in the lack of clarity, right? But like, people with high agency, they don't wait for that situation to be, absolutely clear, and for someone to tell them, oh, this is what you do now, and this is what you do later. It's about, navigating yourself, taking responsibility, creating value. It's about really, like, everything is there, but it's about, how much risk are you eager to take, how much power you're ready to like, to use to get your goal, right?
So how, as the mentor's person, how do you think about this? What advice do you give people? I'm really curious.
I try to, restrain this monster of good advice normally, and I try not to give advice because sometimes they're unsolicited. But in general, is to get this habit of doing hard things and to facing the, just keep on doing. Like, don't wait for someone to tell you what to do or to save you. Like, really, like, make things happen. I don't know if it's an advice.
That's a really interesting point, because I sit at the Jameel World Education Lab at Open Learning MIT, and we often talk to academic leaders who are really worried about AI and able to hold forth a lot about the fears, and they're not actually playing with it. So I think we do need people to do it. We need them to use it, to play with it, to interact.
If that sounds more like an advice, like, invite AI to everything you do, whenever you can.
Yeah, so, there's room for you both to comment, but I was thinking about that word agency. So the way Maria's using it is to talk about human control, human ability to sort of determine what to do and how to do it. So, but agent is also used in AI to represent the bot, right? The model of using AI as agent. So it's odd, it's the same word for two very, very different things. But
I think that's why they say agentic.
Yes,
Than
right.
agency, right?
No, but
So
they sometimes say agents as well.
Yeah,
yes,
agents,
yeah,
but I feel like
yeah.
the field almost
Yes.
has been
So use
pointed to
agentic if you're talking about AI, and use agency if you're talking about people. That's a takeaway. Yeah, okay, please. Yeah.
Yes, so if I may add to this agency, because I also agree that this is one of the biggest advantage that we have, but how to leverage this advantage effectively. And again, when we've run research, studies, talk with entrepreneurs, and also evaluate where people see that there's this human edge. And again, that the response was that it's in judgment. And what is judgment, right? Judgment is consisted, let's say, from two things. A, your domain of expertise, stuff that you actually know about the subject, that you experience. And the second is your ability to think, again, analytically and to judge this output. And where I find AI the most impressive is often outside of our domain of expertise. So if we are not familiar with, let's say, how to organize a conference, and we prompt Gemini how to organize a conference, we get like 5 steps plan how to do it in the best possible way, and it's impressive if we've never done it. But then if we've done it, then we can see, oh, this is missing, I'll do this differently. So I would say to stay relevant, we have to continue building this personal domain of expertise and to really, really double down on this ability to think analytically.
But if we're outsourcing the actual work that builds expertise to AI, we're not accumulating that knowledge base that allows us to have that superior judgment. But maybe you have a solution with the collective notion. I don't know.
So the question about for people to get experience?
Yes, if that's what judgment rests on, a level of personal experience, if you're outsourcing, I mean,
Right.
they
No,
saw
I
this in call
understand. Yeah.
centers, right? With call centers, escalation kept getting pushed up only to the top, a small number of humans who then lack the actual experience in dealing with customers to be the last step to resolve the issue.
And I think it's happening in every field, or there's everyone's predicting forward what will happen. In a law firm or professional services like that, you have sort of the whole ladder process of how you do a lot of work at the beginning so you get all of that experience and then you go up. But what if, and now we don't need associates anymore, then how are they going to get the experience? That's sort of the question. There's another aspect. I would go back to my first question of, do we need people to understand things at that level? Because are we going to actually be operating like that anymore? And because do we keep compounding the challenge of this, or prolonging it by not transforming our system for how it could be? And when does that change happen? And I think what the answer on that is that it's happening right now to us. And we are the ones that are in the middle of this transition happening. And it's sort of like, well, wait a minute, like we need to train people. They need to know how to do that, because I was trained how to do that and it was really hard. Right. And I had to do that, right? So we think that people have to go through that baptism by fire or they won't know. But in fact, there's another way.
You're there to challenge the assumptions.
I am.
So we haven't pulled out all the ways in which AI and humans could or do interface and collaborate. So that might be worth a moment or two. So with, for instance, understanding how you can use AI as a thought partner especially in ideation. You talked about like summarizing and giving you amazing quick results especially on something you don't know about. It's also incredibly useful for decision support, like to get data collected and organized in a way that allows you to take a decision, which maybe is a retro way because maybe it should be deciding itself. It can be used in adaptive learning, like telling you what you need to learn next. I don't know if you have other thoughts about this sort of collaboration part of AI and humans, where you're most excited, where you're seeing great opportunity.
Want to go?
Is AI augmented intelligence? That's absolutely that's something that we're talking about right now. I think I agree that maybe we don't have to go through certain stages of learning. But then again, you were talking about the judgment, and so I think it's this. I still believe in this cooperation, like because efficiency is one thing. We all the time talk about AI in the context of being more efficient, doing things faster, better, but it's we don't think about other effects of that or consequence that can emerge from that. Also, we mostly talk about AI in the context of work, right? Not after work. Like sometimes people, oh yeah, maybe how can I cook something? And you ask ChatGPT. But otherwise, we're all the time focused about getting things faster and with like exact resources that we need. But I think for sure, for decision making, like okay, AI can aggregate a lot of facts, digest them for you, spit something out that then is a good basis for yourself to work on.
The robots are coming, though.
Sorry?
I said the robots are coming, and they'll cook that dinner for you.
Absolutely looking forward to it. Can we make tonight?
And do the dishes.
But But do you think like it's something that's going to be like at the same time everywhere, and everyone will be able to adapt to it and afford it? I think it's there are different aspects to social aspects to that.
Yeah, so I will switch gears a little bit. So I will try to answer the question. So where is the biggest benefits, right, of using AI in daily life? So what we've seen as well in the program and within the research was that people were looking, striving for some big, the best AI use case. And in reality, it's actually quite different because there's no incredible one big use case that would transform your life, but what can transform your life is actually a large sum of small improvements within the task you're already doing. So the biggest mindset change that we're trying to teach people is do not look for the use cases, but just look at the stuff you're already doing and think within every single task how you can make it faster and better with AI, period. You try it today, you stick with this for like 7 weeks, 7 days, and your results will be incredible, I promise you. But probably most of you already know it because you raise your hand that you're using it every day.
I like that advice, and it kind of makes me think we're all going to make a beeline for you after the talk and hear from you. What are all those little things you've put into your life?
Happy to share, happy to share. But by the way, it's I've even listened to the interview with Sam Altman about how he's using this stuff. It was interview run by Adam Grant, and he was waiting. Okay, so share me this how you're using AI. That share us this magic. And he replied, just usual stuff, summarizing documents, writing emails, and mostly that. And he seemed so disappointed with this answer, but this is it. This is where the magic is, but it needs to be cumulative, right?
Interesting. But then we still have the Kathleen vision of like a totally reimagined work stream and life.
Oh, yeah, but I think everything happens fast and slow. And right now we're in this moment where it feels like everything's sped up really fast. But then it takes a long time for the whole world to catch up. So I always love to use the iPhone as an example, that this came out in 2007. And what are we? We're 18 years later, like now, I mean, this runs my life. Like, and by the way, I use ChatGPT and Claude and everything on this. And if we didn't, you don't think about how fast, like that took a long time to sort of completely transform our lives, but these things have.
If I may comment and also support what I've said earlier, because I agree with what you're saying, and even like who is using Microsoft Excel?
I do.
Most of you probably, right? And we often verify this because almost everyone knows Microsoft Excel, but almost no one is using pivot tables. So almost no one is exploring the full capabilities of Microsoft Excel. And I had a conversation with a guy who was responsible at Allegro, which is the biggest e-commerce in Poland, for teaching people how to actually use AI. And he said he's so interested in reading what were the comments of people when Microsoft Excel was introduced to the market. And one of the very familiar, very common comment was, yeah, it's nice, but I don't see that many use cases for that. It seems nice.
It's like the first computer. Wasn't there a comment like that?
It seems familiar, right? Those people who actually learn how to harness it in this small, boring, everyday tasks will be like way further in terms of their productivity compared to the people that are saying, yeah, it's interesting, but I don't see the full potential.
That's really interesting. I can imagine all kinds of takeaways emerging from each of your points of view. So I figured we'd just take the last minute or two from each person to hear, you could offer a point to ponder or the one thing you hope the audience will walk away and do. Or you could even opine on something we're getting wrong or we're missing. So I offer each of you a minute or two to gather up a thought or two to share with the room so that we'll all leave this thinking about really big ideas, because sorry, we couldn't solve the open questions about learning and intelligence, but we definitely want to leave you with some provocations and suggestions. Do you want to start, Kathleen?
I shall. I'd say, let's not let our future become artificial, but let's actually make it well designed. And I would challenge all of you to become supermind architects and thinking about what will be the supermind that you operate in with all of the different aspects of things that sort of run your life and how you want to organize that and do that.
Can you define supermind?
Sure. Supermind is collective intelligence. How humans, either together, as right now we are a supermind, this panel, that we just together synthesized a lot of information and communicated it to you that I think furthered any just one of us operating alone. Thinking about that, I was also supercharged with my iPhone and with these handy-dandy technology things here that we don't even think about. They're become ubiquitous. So thinking about this supermind together, we're operating. That is supermind.
Cool. Design the supermind.
I would say what we always say with Mentors for Starters and during our classes at Skills for Future is like spend time with yourself, get to know yourself, really take care of yourself, and build a kind of immunity to the change, build resilience, build your strengths. Be someone who can really master, having sources of your inner power and sources of happiness. You really, you're building a mind that is then ready to become the master of all the tools that are at your hand. That you really then will know what to do with them. You'll be proactive, and you really, just use all the greatness of what the new Gen AI can offer to what makes you happy and what makes you strong.
Excellent.
Right. So the question is, what is one thing that we would like to share with you? So I'm in educational business, so I'll try to share one thing relating to lifelong learning. So we all have seen this notion that, oh, you need to learn how to learn, right? You need to be effective in learning. I want to kind of challenge it. Why? Because whoever tried learning something on Coursera or whoever attended a massive online open course, right? We all did. But the reality is that the average completion rate is 5%, 6%. And the question is, okay, so how do we learn ourselves? How do we learn, right? And I would say it's way more important for institutions and organizations to learn or to find a way how to move this 5% completion rate, because whenever we want to learn anything, then just daily tasks, business comes in, and we need to stay on top of whatever we have, and we are not actually learning. So my point here is, how do we move 5% of completion rate of any training, like 77%, which is what we did within our program. We actually managed to make people complete 77% in online educational program. And what are the components? And this is for you when you get back to your institutions or organizations, what can you bring there, right? So my point of view on that is effective educational process consists of 3 things. And I like to call it 3 C's, right? Let's see, from your perspective. And it's actually coaching, cohort, and community. So coaching goes with having experienced people to show examples on how you can learn stuff in practice based on their particular experience. And then there is cohort. So stuff has to be time-bounded. Otherwise, there's daily business, and we are lost in this, hence Coursera and 7%. And the third thing is community. So how do you engage within a group, share learnings, share examples? And this is like this Allegro example that I've shared with you. They also did it. I mean, they kind of followed the same process. And the most effective organizations in learning people how to learn or making the educational process effective actually follow consciously or unconsciously this like 3C framework. So this is one thing to rethink.
That's excellent. So now you have some really good life advice from our panelists, and hopefully a chance to continue the conversation with each other, with us, in the coming day or more. And thank you all very much for attending. Thank you. Thank you to my panel. Thank you, guys.